What's up? What's up? Nick Loper here. Welcome to the Side Hustle Show, because if you start a business and no one knows about it, does it really exist? Today, we're geeking out on the awareness problem, how to spread the word about your business and do it in a way that aligns with your style and also, importantly, your budget. To help me out with this is a longtime Side Hustle Show listener. He's a real estate investor, a handyman, and co-host of the Handyman Pros Radio Show podcast, Larry Towner. Welcome to the Side Hustle Show.
Thanks, Nick. Great to be here.
You bet. So you're booked out months in advance for your local handyman service in the North Atlanta area. So you got to be doing something right on the marketing front. Today, we're going to cover some free and low-cost ways to get in front of the right customers at the right time to maximize your return on investment. Lots of local marketing ideas, but there's often an online equivalent as far as those go as well. So I'll do my best to sprinkle those in. Notes and links to all the resources mentioned are at sidehustlenation.com/Larry. It's Larry. And while you're there, make sure to download the free bonus that I put together for you. This is my local marketing cheat sheet. Once again, that's at sidehustlenation.com/Larry, or check it out through the link in the description of your podcast player app. Well, Larry, kick us off. We'll go back and forth in this episode, but guests can go first with your number one free or low-cost marketing idea.
We're going to start with strategy. I know everybody does this, but start with a plan, right? Have a goal, have a plan, start with that. We're going to get right to tools now, but you've got to have a plan, and that budget. This is low cost, so we want to have a budget. So have an idea of what you want to spend, right? So it can be free or it can be a slight amount of money. First one I think we should start with is website, right? And I know everybody says start with a website. I guess the point that I do with a website is it's low cost. Well, you can get set up for, I don't know what it is today, but it's like $150 a year. And the ability to change it and things. When we present any kind of ideas, it needs to be flexible. The beauty of a website is you can go on and edit it whenever you want, change whatever you need to change. If your business changes tack, and in our handyman business, that happens. We're working on plumbing one day, we're working on a wood rot another day, and we're doing carpentry the day after that. So we have to have a kind of broad brochure all the way around. The easiest way to do that is an electronic format, aka a website. In that plan, when we build that plan, drive everything to that website. Nick, I know you believe this. I know you're good at it. We've got to drive everything into one website. And then that way, that's the resource that people can get to.
Yeah, make that be your home base. It always makes me nervous when people are like, oh yeah, just send people over to my Instagram or something. It's like, well, maybe that's going well for you now, but having a home base, that makes a ton of sense. Doesn't have to cost a lot of money to get started. If you prepay your hosting, you can get it under $5 a month. And then, it's the cost of a domain name. Oftentimes you'll get that free when you sign up for hosting. It doesn't have to be the world's most elaborate thing. Like, don't spend a ton of money on this. There's a lot of off the shelf kind of templates and themes that you can use and fill in the blanks to kind of build out this, who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and why somebody should choose you. Is there any, what would you consider like a must-have element on that website?
Probably the biggest must-have is essentially, I call it an elevator pitch. It's got to be something. You need to be able to describe what you do in about 15 to 30 seconds. And you don't have to get super detailed, but it just needs to be a hook, right? So in the case of my handyman business, we are a solution specialist for your home maintenance and repair needs. Pretty simple, right? So when I say solution specialist, that means I do a lot of different things, because I actually say it that way just so it elicits a question when I talk to somebody. And I can answer that question. I say, well, we solve your problems. That's what we do. That's our value add, is we really solve your problems. We help you, and we have the depth and skill to be able to do a lot of different projects. Therefore, we can solve most problems in most cases. We just don't do heights. That's anyway, that's an aside.
We don't do heights. That reminds me of a cool local website that I did find. This was for like Christmas light installations. And the pitch was like, this is Seattle area. He's like, it's cold, it's wet. You're not getting up on that ladder, dude. We'll do it for you. And so he had a little bit of personality, a little bit of the, kind of inherent value add of the service. Like, it's kind of dangerous. Like, you don't want to be doing this, do you? You just hire a pro. And I think that's an important element to consider. And there's, different schools of copywriting on this, but like a little bit of personality. Like, why should somebody hire you versus all these other people? If you have social proof in terms of, maybe you have a bunch of Yelp reviews. I'm sure we'll get into soliciting reviews down the road. If you've worked for any well-known local clients, if you have any sort of media features, like all of those are different elements that you can add to your site to have just a little bit of credit. Maybe you have some certifications in whatever niche that you're in. Like all of that just is, a little trying to elevate the trust that a brand new potential customer of yours has come into this site. And I don't want you to spend a ton of time or money like developing this thing. Like I remember this was years ago, somebody was like, so they sent me an email like, I'm $30,000 and 9 months into developing this website. It's almost done. And I kind of wanted to be like, well, it's a living, breathing document. It's never really done.
It's never done.
First off, but like, do you have a customer? Do you have any, like, don't spend that kind of money. Just kind of, I don't want it to paralyze you into getting started. But I also think if you're going to spend anything on marketing, like this is probably a pretty good first step, because even if you're going around and you're knocking on doors and you don't close a deal right away, people will say, well, maybe I'll think about it. I'll get back to you. They're probably going to Google you, right? And
they're going to Google you. Yeah. It's validation. It's validation. It proves you're real is what it does.
Yes.
It just proves you're real. It's like in the old days, it used to be have a physical location, not so much anymore, especially with COVID, but used to be that, and you need to have that validation. A website today is validation for sure. I don't care if you're a local service or not, you've got to have that website. You've got to be found online someplace, but think like your potential customer, right? So when you go to write that copy and keep it simple, right? Just keep it simple. And any copy that you write, just write it simply so that people can understand, be clear, and just keep it short and use that as copy and then elicit somebody to actually contact you so you can more or less explain things to them verbally because it's different, correct?
Yeah. One thing that I found really helpful on that copywriting front, if you're struggling for ideas, is to use the StoryBrand framework. And I think you can do this for free. Like they'll let you kind of go through their free worksheet if you create an account over there.
Yep.
And they walk you through this, 9-step process of, who's your target customer? What are the pains, problems, struggles that they're going through? What is their desired outcome? What's their end goal? It's positioning the customer as the hero and yourself or your business as the guide to get them there, right? Like the customer is Luke and you can be Obi-Wan is always the example that Donald Miller from StoryBrand uses. And so I thought that was a really cool kind of copywriting framework, especially for your homepage. Like here's what we do, or here's maybe a little bit describing the customer, what their pain is and how you can help solve that problem. Hey, we've done it a dozen times. And
so I guess the question now is, how do you get people to your website?
Yeah, you got anything? Well, once you have that, it's like kind of like, if you build it, they will come, but not so much.
But not so much, right? The first thing that I do is you've got to go on Google Maps and get yourself registered, Google My Business, Google Maps, and get on that local website. That's the first thing. So because people will type in things like, in our case, they type in handyman near me. Right?
Yeah.
And we recommend in the handyman business that we have the Handyman Pros Radio Show. It is a podcast all about home improvement and repair. Our goal is to save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. But one of the things, we've done several articles on hiring contractors and hiring handymen. One of the things we stress is pick somebody that's local, because most people want somebody local. In our case, any local service provider, don't care what business you're in, really. Generally, people like to do business with people that are relatively close. And so you want to get on that Google Maps because you want to have people around you, and around you is relative, but you want people around you to be able to find you.
Yeah, this is totally free to set up. There's, a dozen other local citations that you can go out and submit to Yellow Pages and City Search, and even setting up a Facebook page, right? All of these kind of are opportunities to point back to your site, but they all are, spreading kind of a wide net. Like, where might people be searching for? Like my friend Larry Ludwig from FinCon and affiliate marketing and stuff, he posted on his Instagram the other day, the name of the dentist's office. Like, it was a picture of the physical building, and it said dentist near me. And he was like, this is the epitome of local SEO going too far. But it's like, that's what people are searching for, service provider near me. And this Google My Business piece of it, a really important way to go, like, free to set up. They give you lots of different tools inside of there. You can set your hours of operation. If you don't want to list your home address, you can list kind of a service area, which is what my wife and her partner did for their photography business. Lots of cool tools in there. Do you have any other best practices like for gaining exposure, gaining visibility there? Because I imagine there's probably a dozen other local handymen who are doing the same thing.
It functions much like a blog, and you can write some articles in for your Google My Business posts, and you can post those articles out there. And Google is the largest search engine in the world. So if you do some specific area related tips, like just for example, here in Atlanta, we have a tremendous amount of wood rot. I mean, it's just pervasive in every single wooden facility that lives in Atlanta. So I've written several, just a combination of their blog posts on my website, but I've also written them for Google My Business, and basically it's cut and paste, right? So I cut all these articles, but I write all about doing wood rot repair in my local town. So it's all based right within I try to stay within a certain, about a half an hour circle around where my home base is. And,
okay.
Anyway, but I write a lot of, if you add in those keywords, in Chamblee, Georgia, or in Cumming, Georgia, or wherever you happen to live, it really helps. It drives business. And when you write those articles, gosh, they live forever pretty much. I mean, I get calls from articles I wrote 4 and 5 and 6 years ago. And so
okay.
I put them there. I put them on the website. We post them on Facebook. I do all of you cover as many bases as you can. All of it, by the way, is it's almost free. Website's the most expensive thing. The rest of it's all free. And that's been very successful for us. But get real specific, give people something that they can grab onto in a good written article.
Okay. You're kind of feeding data into the algorithm, into the machine on what you know about, what you help people with. And so if somebody is searching for wood rot Atlanta, like you start to come up, I would argue the same thing. Even if you're kind of an online freelancer, your clients don't have to be local. I would argue it still might make sense to set this up, because we talked to Chris Misterick, who's doing web design in like the Phoenix suburbs. And he's like, hey, I started getting people who found me in Google from my local listing. And so, customers, even if they are looking for a remote freelancer, there's a tendency to have a higher level of trust with somebody who's a neighbor of yours. And so I think that is a worthwhile exercise, even if your business is online.
It really works. That's the other side to it. Along those same lines, grab your phone and shoot some short videos, again, with either your elevator pitch or a description of what you're doing. Again, we actually have not done a wood rot video, thank God, because it's a long story, folks, but we're actually not trying to generate any more business for the handyman business because we're overwhelmed. But I know if I shot a good short video, like 25 to 50 seconds, really short, about wood rot, about a before and after picture, and maybe a few pictures in between, and put it out there with a quick description over the top of it. That then goes on the website, goes on the Google My Business, goes into all the social feeds that you tend to operate on. And again, those things live forever. And video is really, in our business, video is really, really powerful because it actually shows what you're doing. And you show that before and after picture, and it's pretty stunning. It's visual proof. It's that validation. It's all those things that you've already mentioned. We've already mentioned. Just building. It just builds. It's just another brick in that wall, and eventually that business just starts coming your way. It really works. It really, really works. Video is great.
Yeah, that was one that I had on my list, kind of answering common questions in the form of video, either as kind of this search engine feeding the machine what it wants to know, and answering people's questions while you're out on a job, maybe filming. It's hard if you're solo. Maybe you bring a little tripod, like, hey, I'm going to replace such and such on this customer's house. Here's how to get it done. We were replacing our dishwasher a few months ago, and you connect it to the disposal under the sink, and there's like a little blocker in there.
You have to knock that out. Yes.
Yeah. What are you supposed to do with this thing? And so sure enough, some friendly plumber in Salt Lake had made this video, and here's how you get rid of that. Here's how you hook it up. And he had 30,000 views. We weren't locals. We weren't going to be a customer of his, but he probably made a little bit of AdSense money on us watching his video. And we've seen people do this in the online freelance space. Like Joshua Lysick was on the show. He was, he's the Entrepreneur's Wordsmith, I think is his site, doing ghostwriting. And so he would like, how much does a ghostwriter cost? Or how does it work to work with a ghostwriter? How much, traditional versus self-publishing? You kind of target those types of keywords for his YouTube video. And he'd introduce himself. Hey, my name's Joshua. I'm a professional ghostwriter. And I want to show you, over the shoulder, here's how a ghostwriter works or something. And then here's his video. It's just, kind of the keywords that his target customer would be searching for, whether it's online, whether it's local. I think there's some opportunity there. So I'm going to call that number 3, doing video or adding some video content on top of number 2 is Google My Business. What's next on your list here?
So I'm a traditional paper guy. I'm a little bit older. I've been in business since, what year is this? Gosh, I think 1983. Like,
nice.
Oh, it's kind of scary. But when I started, a million years ago in this world, right? I always love to talk to younger people because they're like, when I started in the old days, as they say, but we had no electronic media at all. Well, I take that back. We had electronic media. It was called radio and television, and you paid absolutely a ton of money to be on electronic media. But to do free things or low cost things in those days, you did a lot of paper. We still did brochures and postcards and business cards and other things. And I have found there's like 2 or 3 things here that I'm really going to touch on. One is I'm a big business card guy. Now, with that said, y'all are going, oh, business cards. Everybody talks about business cards, this and that and that and this. And I'm going to say, if you do a business card right, it doesn't really act like a business card. It acts like a brochure, right? So on my business card, which I think, Nick, I've sent you a copy. If I haven't, I will. On my business card, the front actually has my shining face, which the reason that we put the shining face on is so that if one of my customers has it and I'm a new customer, they actually know who shows up at their door. That's the reason that I'm on the.
Well, I think it shows up in your email signature.
I have my business card in my email signature. Yes, I do, because that way people get an idea of what we do, because the business card becomes a mini brochure. It says solution specialist. It drives people to the website on the front page. It's got a phone number and all the contact information. The backside is a little mini brochure. So it says landscaping and carpentry and light electrical and light plumbing and it's all the things basically you think of when you think of a handyman. But that brochure, as a brochure, my business card gives them a concept of what we actually can do. And to remember this is probably the key thing if you're doing business cards. Website on both front and back. And we used to say phone number on front and back, but just website on both front and back. And that drives people to that website. Today, keep in mind when you design your business card, make sure people can take a picture of it. And it has all the information that they need when they take a picture of it with their phone. Because I know people actually take my business cards, they shoot a picture and they hand the card back to me. But it still works. It's all my information in one very concise place. And then the other side of it is now you use these mini brochures and you post them up again, this is really old school, but there's still bulletin boards out there. Like if you go to an Ace Hardware and you're in the handyman business, there's a bulletin board there and you can post your cards on that bulletin board. And lo and behold, you'll go find out that people take those with them. So, and distribute your business cards out, I keep them with me all the time. I don't care where you go. Somebody asks you, what do? You say, I'm a handyman. Here's my business card, and give them one. Trust me, they'll look at that card and they go, wow, you do all this stuff. This is like, wow. Okay, cool. And then, and you have a website too. Wow. In their pocket it goes, or they snap a picture or whatever, but same thing. It still works, folks. I guess that's the point. It still works. It's a place to give you a quick pitch in a short thing. And just to go more towards paper, do the same thing on a postcard, do the same thing on a paper brochure if you choose to. I just find you don't necessarily need to go that far because now you send them to the website. The website's the brochure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of ways to get these into targeted customers without being the, used car salesman. Here's my card. Because we've met the guy at the conference or at the networking events. It's just like his goal is to see how many he can pass out.
How many cards can he hand out?
Is this really a qualified lead? But to your point about going to the neighborhood bulletin boards, if you're something local, thinking of, where your target customers might be hanging out. And so, maybe we got kind of like the neighborhood community pool. If you're offering, fitness classes or, they probably have their own like swim lessons, but maybe you're kind of the neighborhood landscaping professional or something like, is there a community gathering place to get in front of people in that way. When I was doing the painting business, we would go and try and like flyer the neighborhoods. We called it. We had a little door hangers. We would just do a lap around the neighborhood, hang these up on people's doors if they weren't home. If they were home, like talk to somebody face to face, like, hey, when was the last time you painted? We'd love to come give you a free estimate. One thing that I think a lot about is how to turn one customer into two, or turn one customer into five if you can. And so there's like, our neighbor has this house cleaning service that comes by. And the only reason I know that is because they park the car out on the sidewalk and it says like so-and-so's house cleaning. I think it's a huge missed opportunity for this house cleaning company to not like go around to the 6 neighboring houses with their flyer, with their little business card and say, hey, we just cleaned your neighbor next door, call us. Or like, at least maybe there's here's our website for more information, or here's, a neighbor discount on your first. I think that would be really cool, because if I trust my neighbor, they've already done the vetting process. And I think that's huge versus like, oh, now I got to look for house cleaners near me. Like, they've already, by virtue of them trusting this person, they've already gone and done a lot of that legwork for me and say, well, if it's good enough for them, it's got to be good enough for us.
And that's a sales presentation, right? And we call that walking and talking. And I say we, it's my partner and I, we call that walking and talking. We've both been selling forever. And we used to do 100 cold calls a day. And, I'd knock 10 doors in a day all day long. And it really didn't bother me. But if you have an appropriate service, and I say this because this isn't you trying to sell something people don't want. It works really well if you're selling something that people do want. When you say handyman, people conjure up an image of somebody fixing their stuff, basically, for lack of a better word. And if I were just going to walk around a neighborhood and hand out a card and, or as you're saying, letter my truck, and we do wear shirts that have our logo and stuff on it and our phone number and our website on it. If I'm walking around, it's really a simple pitch. It's you knock on the door, somebody comes to the door, you say, hi, my name's Larry. I wanted to drop you this card. We're a local handyman service. If you use us, great. If you don't use us, great. Would you take this card? And that's it. Don't go into depth. Nothing else. It's just a question of getting an acceptance of the card. If you do that enough, you're going to get success. It's really that simple, but don't be obnoxious. Don't go, hey, we've got a special today. We got the $49.95, whatever. I mean, you can do that, but
I can clean your gutters right now.
Yeah, right. If you sign right now, that's right now. Yes. If you wait, there's still more, folks. Sorry. I sound like an old television commercial, but that's just something that I've learned over the years. With the right offer, you actually do they call it a takeaway close. You start walking away and people will stop. They literally will stop you and ask, so tell me, what do you do? Tell me, well, and then you can say, well, what kind, and ask a question with a question. What sort of issues do you have? And let me see if we can actually do those repairs. My roof has a leak. I'm out. That's not Larry. Larry doesn't do heights. I did when I was younger. Anyway, but that's another thing, is just literally take that little business card with the little brochure. And if you want, on a local services business, you can do that. Again, you said it to me. I have my business card on my email line, and that goes out with every single email I get. So trust me, nobody that gets emails from me doesn't know I'm in the handyman business. I do want to say on local business services too, if you're not aware, the United States Post Office has a program of where they will target, it's route specific. So if you have an idea that you want to work in I'm going to say a more affluent area, you can send postcards for their usual postcard rate, but they will only target a specific mail route that they have, and you can get more information at USPS.com. But it's the same thing. You make up a very simple postcard that is just driving them to your website with a basic description of what you do. And if you want to target specific neighborhoods, that's a way to do it. It's really quite inexpensive. You couldn't drive the area and put cards out and do it that way as effectively as you can with USPS. So,
yeah, especially if you have a high ticket service. I imagine if you are that roofing company and you're doing a $20,000, $30,000 job, then those leads are worth quite a bit for you. So you can go spend a little bit of money going fishing for those. On the online side, using this email signature as a business card, I think that's underutilized real estate, or often underutilized real estate for marketing. Because how many, the average person gets 75 to 150 emails a day and probably sends half as many, maybe less. But, it's an opportunity to kind of soft sell what you do in a lot of ways, where you're trying to, even if the person that you're emailing isn't a direct target customer for you. Maybe they know somebody who is, and you're just kind of planting that seed. So I think that's an interesting way to just kind of start to get the word out there. My current email signature links to Side Hustle Nation, and I think it links to my latest, I think it links to the 1K 100 Ways book project or something like that, or maybe a blog post about it. So just kind of, it rotates every 6 to 12 months. Like, here's what I'm working on. Just, let people know, they never know. You never know who's reading this stuff.
Yeah, you never know. You really don't. And you don't know who knows who. As they say, you're supposed to be only 6 people away from anyone in the world. I don't know if that's true, but I know it's pretty amazing how far you can get. That's another, that's a perfect lead in. I didn't even plan that. It's a perfect lead into networking and referral, right? I mean, just in general, I don't care what business you're in. It really doesn't matter. If you use that 6-person idea, somebody knows somebody that knows somebody, you're 6 people away from your referrals. And again, with a local services business, but it expands to all business, particularly a lot of online businesses. You want to work with somebody that your referral base, as you want to call it, you were saying earlier, turn 1 customer into 5 is tremendous if somebody gets out there and actually refers you. And you start with the people that you know, and then you start, if you're brand new and you don't have any customers, then, but you always start with your customers, right? So you get referrals if you can. And again, depending on the business, like the handyman business, referrals are just the lifeblood of the business. If you offer a good service at reasonable prices and you have a good value and you do great work and you show up on time and a few other key marketing points, you're going to get so much business, you don't know what to do with it. But the other things, it works for every business I've ever been in, where you just have to work on those referrals, because you're already pre-sold when you have that referral. It's really much easier because people can already ask the person that they're doing business with. Or, I mean, if you know somebody and they're doing business with the local handyman, they're going to give you all the information that you want. That would be the same thing if you're doing an SEO job. Like, so who do you use for SEO? And especially if they're getting the results that you want, if you're really happy with somebody, referrals are it just makes life super simple, super, super simple.
Yeah, that's the whole reason that sites like Fiverr and Upwork exist, is the person who's searching for help doesn't have somebody in their immediate network. And so they need that go-to person. And it's an opportunity for you as the freelancer to become that go-to person. But if you can circumvent that by, letting people know what you do and becoming a referral source, or I think that's a way to shortcut that. I had a note here on the referral side, which this is an example that I always love. This was Tiffany Aliche, who ran like the Live Richer Challenge, and she's the budgetnista, and she's super famous now. But she was a little bit smaller back in 2016 or something when she was on the Side Hustle Show, and so it was like the 30-day Live Richer Challenge, right? But day 1 was like, find an accountability partner to go through this with. So it's like immediately doubled the size of everybody she got to sign up for this thing. She immediately doubled it if they, completed this first assignment. It's like, that was genius, a stroke of genius, like double the size of your audience. So I think there's different ways to, borrow that in especially in the online world, but, trying to think of, some creative ways. Well, who else does this customer know in the offline world that they may know? So we talked to people doing sleep consulting recently, in the executive space, in the parenting space. CEOs probably know other CEOs, parents probably know other parents. It's like, okay, if you can get in once, then the referral engine, the word of mouth engine starts spinning there. Have you ever done yard signs? This was big in the painting world, where, you're going to be on this job site for a week. So you'd stick your yard sign in the front, so everybody driving by would turn and look and see what you're working on.
I have like 5 of them in the truck. They go out very, very rarely because, again, I'm not trying to generate business at this point. I'm trying to slow it up a bit, which gets to pricing, but that's a whole nother marketing thing. Again, it's all about a proper yard sign. It's any marketing, folks. If the best thing use your supercomputer, make sure if you do any marketing at all, don't try to do everything. It's almost impossible. There's thousands of things you can do. Do a few things well. Do them really, really well. And a good yard sign, like painting, it's fantastic, especially if you're going to be there for a while. They work. People drive by. It's like lettering on your truck. The average vehicle, I know this, I've been involved in the trucking industry for a long time. The average vehicle, there's 50,000 impressions a day in a metro area on a sign on your truck. So the question is how do you get it seen? And it's the same thing with a yard sign. If you put your yard sign out, if you're working in a neighborhood of, I don't know, 200 people, 200 homes, 300 homes, somebody in that neighborhood is going to need their house painted. It's just as night follows day. It's just numbers, right? And so the right sign is going to get people to either stop and ask you on the job site, or if you have the website on the yard sign, they're going to snap a picture. Again, today everything works on a picture. They snap a picture. They've got your contact information and your website.
I saw one locally. It just said Facebook ads, Google ads, and a phone number. And it was just like, it felt so funny to be like offering digital marketing in such an offline, old school way, but maybe it was effective.
Well, think about it, Nick, because somebody like myself, who's not exactly young or is not exactly, I am electronically oriented, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a mega expert at it. So somebody that has no idea is going to call that phone number. Trust me, my father-in-law would call that.
What do you do? How does this work? Can you get me?
Yeah.
Can you get me some more eyeballs? I was going to say my brother, for his tutoring business, has got yard signs made and just plopped them at the entrance to his target neighborhood, and said, yeah, he's gotten calls off of that. So he's gotten calls off of Facebook groups, which, maybe is another one to add on this list, like being of service, answering questions, and kind of positioning yourself maybe with a little bit of authority in the intro to your question. So it's not just some random person chiming in like, hey, I know a little bit what I'm talking about. You could say, hey, I'm a professional handyman. If this is what you're dealing with, here's what I'd recommend. If you want to set up a consultation to chat about it more, click here, or here's my calendar link or something. I always seen some people do really well with that. An example that comes to mind is Monica Louie, who was the Facebook ads expert inside the FinCon community. And, anytime there was a Facebook ads question, people would rush to tag her, and she's done really well on the back of that. But starting by answering people's questions and being of service in these different communities. And maybe it's not just Facebook, maybe it's a LinkedIn group, maybe it's a next door, neighborhood type of chat, whatever it may be.
There's so many different places to go. And that's, again, just, you have to kind of find out, like, where do you think your people are hanging out, and look at the demographics and stuff. If you were doing business to business, LinkedIn is the answer, right? It's relatively obvious. If you're doing business to business, you want to be on LinkedIn, but you can't discount some of the other ones. But it's definitely all about targeting that market and knowing, who's where. For like home services, like what we're doing, Nextdoor is really, really strong. If you can get somebody to really refer you out on Nextdoor, you will be so busy you won't know what to do with the work. And they're really good, high quality leads. And so Nextdoor is really strong for local, like contractor services and things like that, plumbers and all of us, basically anybody that does trades does really well on Nextdoor. And we do well on Facebook also, because the demographics tend to be a little bit older.
Yeah. I mean, there's people who've built businesses inside of the Bigger Pockets forums, inside of the Choose FI forums. It's just like becoming a person of value, a go-to source for whatever specific problem. It's definitely a very viable way to go. It's kind of, in some ways, a matter of like getting in the reps and getting your name in front of that audience enough times that, people start to associate you with such and such a problem or such and such skill, but definitely really, really valuable. I want to go back to the vehicle advertising for a while. Yes. And at one point, I thought this was going to be like my genius tax write-off until my CPA said, no, that's not how this works. I was like, I could just slap an ad on the back of my car and like every mile I drive is a write-off because it's advertising. It's like, sorry, Nick, doesn't quite work that way. But I see this as a source of business ideas, like seeing what services are painted on the sides of different trucks and vans and cars around town. Because you'll see stuff and you start to notice, you're like, that's a crazy niche. I had no idea that people were doing that and doing well enough to have a truck doing it. I think it's really cool for branding, for awareness, and even if you're on the business idea searching front, a way to find different business ideas. I have next on my list a note here that says power partners. And I have a note that says like, think of this as, instead of one-off leads, trying to find sources of lead fountains, where if you can build a relationship with these people or these types of people, they're going to give you a steady source of potential clients versus knocking on doors, like very like one-to-one marketing tactics, trying to think one-to-many. So we had Erica Kruppen in her Pooper Scooper business. She was bringing donuts by the vet's office and bringing business cards by the vet's office, because who were her target customers? People who had dogs. And where do people that had dogs go? Yeah, she could go door to door and try and find them. But, going to the vet's office was kind of like the central place. We had Johnny Robinson just a few weeks ago talking about his window washing service. And so his strategic partner was home cleaners, like just interior cleaning services. And he's like, well, do you have a referral partner for, exterior windows? Yeah, we'll do the insides too. But it's like, okay, this is a non-competitive service. And, our customers are already proven to care about maintaining their house, maintaining their property. And, yeah, we can send you some clients. And I think he even gave them like a 15% referral fee or kickback for that. And so I'm trying to think of all of those, sources of, lead fountains, whatever that may be for your business.
Every business has that, Nick. And I'll tell you the one in a previous business that I had, one that I used to get a ton of leads from was what I called them friendly competitors. They're actually in the same business, but because of geographical limitations, they would not take business, too far away out of their operational area. And conversely, they were far enough away from me that I was sending them leads when I would get, because as your marketing works, right? I'd get a phone call for service, and I'd be like, well, I don't service that particular area of town, but let me tell you what, why don't you call this guy? He's fantastic. Friendly competitor. And then I'm thinking of one particular person. I still talk to him all these years, and he's still in that business and I'm not, but we used to trade talk all the time too. And I gained so much insight just in the business in general by having somebody else just to bounce ideas off of and things like that. And then trade leads as well. It was great. But think about who else is not in your business, but who your customers use. And it's just like auto mechanic. Most people that have a nice car and really want to take meticulous care of their car also want to have their car washed. Well, if you had a good car wash or a good mobile car wash or something like that, it's really prevalent, like with boats and boat owners. And Nick, you used to live in Atlanta, so you know about Lake Lanier. Well, there's a whole huge group called the Lake Lanier Boaters Group. And I mean, it's immense. And everybody makes recommendations. These guys are good. These guys are good. I mean, there's so many opportunities.
In the handyman business, I'm thinking like property managers, Airbnb owners, real estate investors, where they just will have a steady stream of work for you.
It's how I got in the handyman business. I was a real estate investor, and basically what happened, I was talking to somebody and they said, hey, can you do some of this work at my house? And I was like, yeah, I think so. Why not? Are you willing to pay? And they're like, yeah, I'm willing to pay. I said, great, let's go,
Let's give it a shot.
Let's give it a shot. And from that standpoint, that actually niched out into its own kind of separate market, because rental property owners have a bit of a different philosophy, I guess, and depending on how they want to operate their businesses. I made the mistake of contacting one property manager. She said, yeah, I've got a little bit of work. And she sent me 1,200 leads in the first week. I was like, whoa, time. I'm one guy.
I don't have a team of people. But to your point about friendly competitors, I've never heard it called that. But I think that's really kind of cool. Like especially in this market, especially in the home services, people are just swamped. They're booked out months in advance. If you can become a trusted referral partner for somebody who is that friendly competitor, who's somebody booked up, maybe you even send them a little kickback or a finder's fee for somebody sending you new business. I remember in an online example was John Doherty, who he was getcredo.com, like SEO services, where he was getting paid to turn down business because he's like, look, I'm kind of swamped, but I trust this other SEO service. And, because it's going to be $1,000, $2,000 engagement for 6, 12, 18 months, like it's a really high value lead. Hey, would you guys mind sending me a little finder's fee for introducing you to this client? Oh yeah, no problem. And so I thought that was that could be an interesting way for somebody maybe like yourself who is booked up to say, hey, I got these leads coming in. Maybe I could farm those out to somebody else, as long as you trust them, right? Because your reputation is still on the line there. And that was kind of John's secret sauce, was like the personalization and the vetting process, and say, okay, I think you're going to align up well with this service. And next on my list is the power of a community newsletter, or basically tapping into an audience that already exists, whether that's a physical newsletter or an email newsletter, if there's an opportunity to contribute, a monthly article, maybe there's one that goes out to the subdivision and you're submitting like, here's 5 tips to winterize your home. And it's, signed off, Larry from, Handyman Services. Like, I think that would be, it's a soft sell way to get in front of people. And it could even be as direct as sponsoring some of these newsletters that already exist, that already are going out to your target audience. We had Dustin Lean, who was doing partner workshops, like he was doing e-commerce copywriting and I forget what, but he like digital marketing for direct to consumer e-commerce brands. And he'd partner with these various software companies that these brands were already using and say like, here's, the workshop on how to improve your abandoned cart sequence or something like specific. And it was like all, power hour educational workshop type of stuff, but it was him delivering value, getting in front of the customer. So whenever they had questions on email marketing, like he became the go-to person. And I think you could do the same thing with the newsletter setup. If there's something that exists, and there probably is, serving your target community, to embed yourself in that and be of service in some way.
They're pervasive in the home services business. They're all over the place. Some communities publish their own little newspapers. You can get into there. In our case, in the handyman business, we have actually aligned up with some realtors also, and they actually send us a tremendous amount of business. We've actually had to scale back on that particular idea, but they have newsletters that go out to all of their realtors, for example. And I was actually given the opportunity to stand up in front of a group of people, a group of realtors, 200 realtors in one office, and basically give them 5 tips or so for home maintenance, or what things they can help with when they go to sell the home. I actually turned the engagement down because I just knew it would be a mess. For me, it would have been a mess. I'd have 10,000 leads in 2 weeks, and I just couldn't even handle the business. But those opportunities exist. If you get a chance to go speak at, we're going to use FinCon again. If you get a chance to speak at FinCon and just show and develop that rapport, being on a podcast just like this one is another way of getting out there and getting some credibility into particularly targeted markets. You can really build your awareness, and it is about awareness and what value can you offer. For the Handyman Pros Radio Show, we give away like the fall maintenance checklist and the spring maintenance checklist and through the seasons. And that's just a checklist literally for people to go and say, okay, I need to do this for my home to get ready for winter, and we somewhat customize it for north and south for the winter months. But we give it's a value add. It's a free thing, and it's a PDF we've created at once, and it works. It works. Newsletters work. I don't care what anybody says. They work. They do take a little bit of effort, though. Almost all these things take effort.
It's all a little bit of effort, but the important thing to note here, and you're kind of been alluding to this throughout, is it doesn't take that much work to make a meaningful impact, depending on what your financial goals are. It's like, using any one of these, you could easily find, 2, 3, 10, 15 clients a month, however many you need. I think the opportunity is out there. And I can't believe I didn't have podcast guesting on my list. That's a huge one. So that's great. Thank you for bringing that up. There's podcastguests.com. There's radio guest list. There's a bunch of these different services that can match you up with potential shows that your target customers are listening to. I think it works better for online businesses, online consulting, freelancing type of businesses where you're coming on, you're adding value, you're establishing credibility. And a certain percentage of that audience is now like, well, the host has already vetted this person. So if I have trouble in that area, I know who I'm going to call. And I've heard from several guests on this show that said, oh my gosh, thank you for having me on. Like it was a non-zero impact on their bottom line, on their business. So I love that call for podcast guesting. Now you and your partner host the Handyman Pros Radio Show yourselves, which is geared toward homeowners, is my understanding. Like, does that generate leads for you?
It doesn't necessarily generate leads because of the fact that because of its worldwide appeal, I guess. I mean, we have listeners, the last time I checked, in like 52 countries, and they're all over the place. But what it does for us largely is it gives us validation. So, it's on my handyman services group on hssji.com, which is my handyman site. It's there and it says, host of the Handyman Pros Radio Show. If somebody has a question, they can go and they listen and they go, wow, these, basically these guys know what they're talking about. They've done this once or twice, and so it lends to validation in that sense.
Yeah, I was just curious about that because it does have a much broader reach than just your local geographic area, but it is social proof. It's more like relationship building if local customers do hear you on there, and it opens up some opportunities to connect with other people in the industry, really nationwide, worldwide. So that's cool. You guys, I don't know, it's a fun, back and forth kind of car talk, like click and clack type of show. I find it entertaining, and I'm not your target listener. Number, I think 16. I don't know. I lost count, but I wanted to ask if you had any strategies that worked for soliciting reviews for Google My Business, for Yelp, for Facebook, just to say that it's not a ghost town when somebody comes to this page. Yeah, they have a listing, but there's one review or probably from their brother, to build up a critical mass there.
If you do good work, it's easy to ask for the referral. If you do kind of a substandard job, it's tough to get those referrals. So concentrate on your product development and on what you do and set yourself apart. There's the old adage, do a little bit more than you're paid for. In our case, we vacuum up and clean. I try to leave the home when I get done with a job cleaner than when I started, because what do contractors do? Usually they leave a mess. And then you go and ask for the review either by email or even in person. You just ask. It really is simple. Say, hey, we're trying to grow our business. We really need good reviews out there. I'll tell you what, if you write me a good review, you can incentivize them. You can say, I'll give you $50 off your next service or whatever, but you don't necessarily have to. If you do a really, really good job, they'll do it for free. Just send them the link. I think that's the key, is make sure that make it simple. Keep it simple for them. Make it easy, because people have enough stuff to do. It's why my goal in all of my businesses I've ever been in is I don't want to create work for someone else, right? I'm not in the business of creating work for anyone. So that's why I don't leave a mess. I don't want to leave extra work for somebody. We try to truck trash out. If we don't get the trash out, we at least put it in the receptacles, things like that. But it's the same, the principle applies to getting a referral. Make it as simple for them as possible. If you have to write the review and say, hey, would you approve this? We used to do that with referral letters back in the day when you actually had to get a written letter, but it's the same principle. You write the letter and you say, does that sound good to you? And they say, no, I'd like to change this. Okay. So you get in there and you change it and they go, yeah, that's great. I say, can you post it? And they'll post it. And you can't beat it. I mean, I hate to sound like we're trying to control the referral, but people won't do that unless it's true to their sentiment. If they don't agree with you, they will not post it. And if you do a really good job, they will post it. So again, make it easy for them to give you a review. That's worked really well for me.
Yeah. So you're mentioning it as you're leaving the job site. Hey, if you're satisfied with that job, we'd love a review because, we're trying to grow our business and this is really helpful. Emailing them the link to do so after the fact. And then sometimes even going so far as drafting up a few lines of that review, like, hey, Larry showed up on time. He was professional. He got this thing fixed in, the time he said it would, on time, on budget. It was a great experience and he left the place clean. I've done the same thing for book reviews because it's like, I gotta get to, the critical mass, 10, 25, 50 reviews on Amazon to, make it look like it's an official book and it's got some traction. And so it's like sometimes going to that trouble of, especially if people reply to you on email, like, hey, this was so cool. I learned about such and such. Replying back, here's the link to Amazon. Would you mind copying, pasting that into Amazon? Like trying to make it as easy as possible. So I appreciate you sharing that. One tip that Johnny Robinson shared was requesting the customer put pictures inside that Yelp and Google review. For whatever reason, that makes the review look more legit. It gives them more data to chew on, and it's also all sorts of warm fuzzy signals to those platforms. And so if you have before and after pictures that you took yourself, you don't need to make the customer take them. You could include that in your email and say, okay, could you even upload these? I think those are probably some good practices for getting those reviews. Anything else on your list?
Well, just one more comment on reviews. If you can get somebody to shoot a short video for you, now you're really cooking. So, I mean, if you can get somebody to actually sit there and you do a quick interview, say, hey, this is Larry from Handyman Services. I'm just here with Nick. And Nick, we just finished this job up here. What do you think? And just let you just shoot it right on your camera. And if you can get those kind of reviews, they are gold. I mean, gold. So, Nick, I have a million marketing ideas. If somebody wants to get in contact with me for marketing ideas for any business, I'm better at local businesses and niche businesses. So like if you've got a real niche business, you want to target specific groups of people or businesses or whatever. I'm really good at that kind of stuff. Just coming up with ideas as an accountability partner or as somebody that's just looking to just wants to pick my brain for a few minutes. I will say this, I generally won't call you back till after 5 o'clock because I try not to sell when I'm on the job for somebody else. But that's just one of my business policies. I don't feel it's my job to sell somebody else while I'm on a job site, as it were. So I do most of my stuff in the evening. But anyway, it's a positioning statement.
Fair enough. I love geeking out on this stuff. The last thing that I had in my notes here was thinking B2B versus B2C. So if you have a consumer-facing business, it can be sometimes difficult to figure out, how to get in front of those people, whereas targeting businesses may be a little bit easier. So the example that came to mind was Josh Belk and his brother's mobile car detailing service. And so they were doing okay, doing, consumers' cars in their driveways and stuff. But, they started to really get consistent business when they partnered with the local car dealer who always had used cars coming in that needed detailing. And there's often just a slight pivot where, okay, if I, maybe I license this to some sort of business customer, and maybe it's a lower price upfront, but they make it up on volume. Just trying to find a different angle that may put your business on a different trajectory. So
Lots of ideas there, lots and lots. And just back, so I told you I have experience in the trucking industry. For somebody that does mobile car detailing, trucks are an even better source if you can get to them. And when I say trucks, that's anything from any commercial vehicle up to tractor trailers. But image is important for those people. And so therefore it's back to, it's kind of like that lead magnet, or not lead magnet, but the fountain of people. All of a sudden you're into a fountain. And it's a big fountain. You just didn't realize it. And it sits right there in front of you. But you just have to be saying, I wonder how they do X. How does such and such a company do X? And gosh, I don't know, pick the phone up and call somebody or get online and see how do they do X and find out if that works. Sometimes they're right there. The beauty of business to business, in my experience, and we do a little bit of business to business because we've got some really good commercial customers that call us back, and we basically do facility maintenance for them, which is really kind of nice because they have a different philosophy, I guess. And so we do more maintenance items where we go back on a regular scheduled basis. Scheduling is everything for us. And we really like to be on that schedule. How you target a business is you literally just find out the name. And then somewhere somebody's done something online and you can get an actual name of a person. Long ago, I ran a vending business. I used to walk in the back door of the dock and just say, hey, who handles your vending? And you'd either, or do you have vending? I'd just ask a simple question. Do you have vending? And they say yes, no,
yeah.
Or they tell me all about how bad their vending is or how good their vending is. Either way, but I was winning. That's what it was. The more information I got, I was winning.
Yeah, it comes down to those conversations. I like that. What do you have vending? Reminds me of John Wilker and his pallet flipping business in Birmingham. Like, what do y'all do with those pallets?
What do you do with those pallets?
Start the conversation, they're either a buyer or a supplier in his case. Well, Larry, tons of fun. Appreciate you joining me. This is Larry Towner from hssgi.com, Handyman Services by Service Group International, hssgi.com. Check him out at the Handyman Pros Radio Show, which is handymanprosradioshow.com. Let's wrap this thing up with your number one tip for Side Hustle Nation.
If you want to do anything, make a plan and go do it. That's it. It's really that simple. Opportunity is everywhere in every sphere. And I've heard it. I've heard ideas on the Side Hustle Nation. I can't believe our businesses, but they are. It's crazy. So it's out there. Go get it.
It's so true. Make a plan. Go do it. Thanks so much for joining me. Just some thoughts on this one. I think, like we talked about, it may not take a lot of customers to make this happen. We talked about the 1,000 true fans principle a lot, but maybe you dial that back and maybe it's just 10 true clients, which is a note from the Tropical MBA podcast, where it's like, if you scale it back, it may not take a lot to get to your income goals. And then just there's a million and one ways to get it done. I'm thinking in terms of marketing, just marketing 101, go where your customers already are and who they're already doing business with, and see if you can find a shortcut or find an inroad to be of value, to be of service to those people and make it a win-win for everybody. But notes and links for this episode, links to all those resources mentioned are at sidehustlenation.com/Larry. While you're there, make sure to download the free bonus local marketing cheat sheet I put together. I'm sure there's some repeats from the ideas in this episode, but some extra ones in there too. That's at sidehustlenation.com/Larry, or check it out through the link in the episode description of your podcast app. Larry, thanks so much for sharing your insight. That is it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, let's go out there and make something happen, and I'll catch you in the next edition of The Side Hustle Show. Hustle on.